First of all, welcome to L'chaim, a taste of Jewish music from anywhere. This monthly series was inaugurated back in August 2020. And if you want to know more about the wonderful places we have visited, you can go to the Colorado Hebrew Chorale website under COVID-19 programming, because our programs are archived there. So if you had a hankering to go to India or Morocco or even Anatevka, you can go back and revisit those locations. Now for the commercial. First of all, we couldn't do this without you, as you know, and we'll remind you about that later. But I also want to take this opportunity to thank SCFD, the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District here in Denver. And if you don't know about that, ask me later. We also like to thank Colorado Creative Industries, the Rose Community Foundation, the Bain Foundation, Union Pacific Foundation, Anonymous, and other contributors. Oh, City and County of Denver. Now I think I've hit all the biggies, but that doesn't mean we couldn't do this without you. So thank you in advance. And because Seth Ward, with whom I have made a life, or this is what happens after 45 years ago, walking into a rehearsal, now 46 years ago, and suddenly we were grandparents to the same three grandchildren. How did that happen?
Uh-oh.
Anyway, I'm happy to introduce my spouse, Dr. Seth Ward, who will take everyone on a journey to Kazablan and the slums of Yafo. Take it away, Seth. Unmute yourself.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Israel's favorite musical, Kazablan, is set in an area called Hashetach HaGadol, roughly translates as the large plot, a rundown section of Old Jaffa, the ancient city at the heart of Tel Aviv. The neighborhood is about to be bulldozed. It has a reputation, and this is a reputation in real life, as being a place in which there are gangsters, people who commit crimes with knives, prostitutes, all sorts of lowlives. The show is a maelstrom of different cultures. Interethnic tensions are at high pitch. Ashkenazim, Jews from Europe, are pitched against Sephardim and Mizrahim, Jews from Arab lands, different ethnicities, Romania, Poland, Germany, Algeria, Kurds, etc. All of them are locked together. At the heart of the stage musical and the film is both a love story and a whodunit. The musical itself premiered on stage in 1966. The film was released in 1973. The score is by one of the most important Israeli composers, Dov Seltzer, or Dubi Zeltzer, sometimes called the Melody Maker, the name of a book that he wrote, with unforgettable songs. Israeli music generated lots and lots of songs set in individual cities. People familiar with the Israeli music of a certain era know songs about Tel Aviv and Dimona and Eilat and Hey Daroma and the caravans going through the desert and Yam Kinneret. Jaffa has a number of such songs. Every list of songs from Jaffa that I looked at has Kol HaKavod, one of the songs from Kazablan, topping the list. Since that was done very excellently last week by Leah Peer and our marvelous musical men, I will sing the song with you if I have a chance. I'm going to start a PowerPoint. Hopefully it will work perfectly. Here are some images of Jaffa. the clock tower, the museum in the old city, which is actually right on the border of Hasheta Hagadol, the view of the port with St. Peter's Church, and an example of the destruction that occurred in late British Mandate times and in the War of Independence. This is after one of the Jewish resistance groups destroyed the old Saraya. One of the themes of our series has been to have food and drink associated with the locations. And before going any further, I'm going to talk about the two that are most obvious to me. First of all, there is Burekas. Why Burekas? Well, Burekas don't play any role in this film. But a film author and a filmmaker and a film critic, Boaz Davidson, called the genre of films in which you have Sephardi or Mizrahi heroes in melodramas and light comedies coming out ahead. He called them Burekas films. At least that is the title that stuck. The drink will be arak, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Today, I actually tried a variation of the recipe that I put in the recipe list. The picture that I have in front of you happens to be made with a dough that I had made for a kind of pizza dish. So it's a bread dough with yeast. Worked very, very well. It's a little bit more solid than the recipe that I have for you. I'm going to point it out very, very briefly. Hopefully, it will come right to it. Here's the recipe for pastry dough, and you can buy this and it may come out better. Unsalted margarine, coarse salt, olive oil, 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 tablespoons ice water. You can make the filling anything you want. This filling is with potatoes, and you all should have a link where you can download this document itself. I mixed them up. The secret is that you should cut the dough into 4-inch squares and then put the filling on part of the square, fold it over, a little bit of yolk on top and sesame seeds on it, and cook it. Drink is arak. If you look closely in the film, you can see glasses with white liquid, and I have a picture here from the film, and this is the kind of glass you're supposed to drink arak from. I'd like to point out, I'm going to stop sharing the screen for just a moment. Stop share. That my favorite is arak that is totally clear. L'chaim. And I brought the burekas that I made today in honor of today's show. So here they are. That's what they look like. Okay, back to sharing the screen. Forum's coming up later this week, and Tori Avey, whose recipe I adapted, said that, well, maybe Queen Esther had burekas because they could be made parv, and that way she wouldn't have had eaten any meat. I don't know whether Tori Avey was familiar, though, that lots of people think you should have kreplach, which are very similar to the burekas, except they're Ashkenazi. On Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and it's Erev Yom Kippur, not on Yom Kippur itself. And on Purim, the mnemonic being kreplach. Take whatever you want out of it, but you can make these for Purim Thursday night and Friday if you want. Here's a recipe again. Oh, I have an image of Napoleon here visiting Jaffa, and I'm going to go back to my story. I don't have time to give you an awful lot of background about Jaffa. I have one more comment about the nomenclature. It's actually interesting that the films are called burekas films. Very few of them actually feature burekas. Officer Azulai does, but not many of them do. More frequently, films that are Ashkenazi but have the same light comedy, melodrama, and so on are called gefilte fish films. And anybody familiar with the film Kazablan will know why gefilte fish film is a good name for that film as well. I thought maybe we should have other things I would discuss for the food. Goulash came to mind, raisins and almonds, or raisins and almonds and pistachios. I'll explain in a few moments. Okay, Jaffa. Jaffa goes back at least to Egyptian times. There are documentary sources from the 15th pre-Christian century. The Greeks associated with Jaffa with Cassiopeia, Yopia from Jaffa, Yopa, and her daughter Andromeda, who was changed to a rock and rescued by Perseus. Jaffa is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible a couple of times, story of Jonah, etc., and it's mentioned in the New Testament, the Mishnah and the Talmud, Midrash, and so on. It was an important port throughout the Middle Ages, and here is a fanciful rendering of Napoleon's visit to Jaffa in 1799. Jaffa grew in size in the 19th century, especially with a large migration of Jews and others to the Middle East. And by the early 20th century, it actually had equal numbers, more or less, of Jews and Muslims. But the Jewish community began to leave with the riots in the 1920s and 1930s, going to a new suburb that was built just a short walk. Today, about a 45-minute walk from downtown Jaffa. Suburb was called Tel Aviv, which grew by leaps and bounds. 1936, the British Mandate authorities dynamited whole stretches of old Jaffa to create access to a neighborhood that was already a center of Arab nationalist activities, rock throwing, and worse, and it had become a center of the Arab uprising. And this was part of the beginning of Hashetach HaGadol, the setting for the film. In May 1937, here's a picture of Jaffa, and there should be an image of, there we go. In May 1937, Arabs of Jaffa put together the Alhambra Theater. The Alhambra Theater is on what had been known as Jamal Pasha Boulevard. In the 1930s, it had been named after King George V. It had a large screen. The screen could be raised for a stage. And the stage hosted Kulthum, Layla Murad, Farid al-Atrash, and many Arab stars. And there were 1,200 to 1,500 seats. You'll notice that during the Arab uprisings of the 1930s, pre-state days, the Alhambra flew the Arab resistance flag, which you can see on the top of the theater. In the Independence War, 70% of the area around, and I'll show you Ghana Pisgah is over here. The area over here, 70% of this area was destroyed. Most of the Arab residents left. And that's the background for Hashetach HaGadol. Yigal Mosinson wrote the play Kazablan. It premiered in April of 1954. And I have for you an image of the first page of the play and the original participants, the original actors. Kazablan was played by Yosef Yadin. Yosef Yadin is the brother of Yigael Yadin. He did not go into the family business of archaeology. He was a very well-known actor. And you have the actors there as well. Esther Greenberg had a role in Kazablan, the musical as well. And I'm not going to go into this in too great detail. I am going to mention that Yigal Mosinson lived from 1917 to 1994. He's famous for children's stories called Chassamba, and he wrote novels and plays and short stories. Like many others, he was in the Palmach. He was imprisoned by the British. He lived in various kibbutzim. He left the kibbutz in 1950 and had a very, very full career. The action of the play takes place in a small courtyard with various apartments that I don't think you ever saw in the stage play. These courtyards have the living quarters of Kazablan and of Feldman, and of some of the other people who appear later on in the musical version as well. The story is that there's a knifing. We learn in the second act that the person who was knifed was Avraham Feldman, the brother of Rachel Feldman, one of the central figures of the musical. We see from the very beginning that Kazablan is suspected of the knifing, and he doesn't very much defend himself. Instead, he delivers a very powerful speech about what today we would call cultural stereotyping or ethnic stereotyping, saying, I'm a Moroccan, but this was put into the musical. I was a hero in the Independence War, and then you completely forgot about me and considered me to be a petty criminal. At the end, it's clear that the Josh character, the Abrasha character, and the audience as well realizes how easy it is to stereotype Sephardic and Mizrahi people in the Israel of the 1950s. The play won a Kinor David or David Violin Prize. Kazablan was made into a film in Greece because the Israeli film industry was not able to tackle the serious issue of Sephardic versus Ashkenazi relations in a drama that was serious. It could be done lightheartedly. It could be done in a documentary. It could not be done in a drama. So this is, pardon my Greek, Syntamiatis Zois, which I understand is translated as, let me read the exact thing. Fragments of Life. It was filmed in Greece. It had a limited American run. I found that Turner Classic Movies has the rights to it. I have been able to find it in Greek without subtitles. I have not been able to view it with the subtitles. The next stage is the musical. Kazablan became a musical because of this man. Giora Godik was a producer and impresario, and he bought the Alhambra Theater in 1963. He mounted Broadway-style musicals together with all the bells and whistles, My Fair Lady, King and I, Fiddler on the Roof. And in 1966, he decided it was time for a totally Israeli musical. He assembled an A-list of staff to work on it. The lyricist Dan Almagor, Yigal Mozinson, he had decided it was going to be based on Kazablan, the Israeli author Yoram Kaniuk, the producer and director Yoel Zilberg, Dubi Zeltzer, and many others. Zeltzer had worked with Dan Almagor earlier, and he worked together with Almagor to create initial songs for the project. Zeltzer was from Iași in Romania. He was born in 1932. And he was already composing in Romania as a young boy for Hashomer Hatzair youth groups and camps. He came to the land of Israel, to Palestine at age 15, with a big knapsack on his back, his bar mitzvah boy, younger brother in one hand, and a big old accordion in the other hand. He played in the Nahal and met all the greats of the Israeli stage and screen. He went to New York, where he studied in the Manes School and got a BSc in music. He studied with Mordechai Setter, with Robert Starr, and a few other people. He married Geula Gil, whom he had known from the Nahal troops, and he had an international reputation writing songs for her. Zeltzer and Almagor and a few others wrote some songs for the production that Godik had envisioned. He wrote 3 songs. He says in his memoir, Oseh Manginot, the melody maker, he wrote Kol HaKavod, That the lyrics were with Don Almagor. She wrote a song called Sela Andromeda, Andromeda's Rock, and Yesham 8, There's a Tree. Godek did not like the words for Andromeda's Rock. Eventually, it was changed to Ani Kokach Pochedet, I am so afraid, as it was sung on stage and in the film. And There's a Tree became There's a Place. He had the stars of the production Godek had mounted, The King and I, sing it, had investors come, and the play was a go. There are lots of stories about the audition for the leading role. Apparently, Ari San and Arik Einstein, two A-list stars, were slated for auditions and had been considered. As luck would have it, someone who tried out for the part was a veteran of Nachal, of the Shlishiat Gesher Yarkon, of the Roosters Artarnagolim, and had been studying in New York at the Herbert Bergdorf Studio and the RCA Institute for TV Production. Apparently, he was upset that it was merely audition. He thought he had the part, but his tryout was a sensation. Seltzer and everybody else knew that they had found the defining actor to play Kazablan. And this began a lifelong collaboration between Seltzer and Yehoram Gaon. Seltzer wrote songs for Gaon's solo concerts. He wrote most of the songs, I think all the songs for Ani Yerushalmi, et cetera, et cetera. Godek brought a staff. They made many changes in the original play. The role of Moshiko was substantially enlarged. The Kazablan character was accused of stealing petty cash, a large amount of petty cash, but in a lunchbox, not of attempted murder. And the grand finale was not exactly a wedding, or not exactly the realization that Sephardim could be good people, but a brit milah, a circumcision, in order to telegraph the idea that the next generation would have a mixing of the various ethnicities, and that would address the issue. Kazablan, the musical, ran for over 600 performances at the Alhambra and has been mounted by schools and camps, and there were a couple of professional Israeli revivals as well. One of the songs I'm going to share with you today is Rosa Rosa. This was not part of the original musical. It was written by Seltzer for Yehoram Gaon's first solo concert. The film was recorded live in Jaffa, but Hashetach HaGadol had already been bulldozed to make a beautiful park. So it was filmed in Manshia. This is what Manshia looks like today. And the Alma Beach is more or less where it is, the Charles Clore Park. And then you have the TLV Eurovision Village, the place where the 2019 Eurovision was handled was right on the beach, over the set, you might say, of Kazablan. By the way, if you're walking in the Charles Clore Park, you might want to consider that when they bulldozed the neighborhood, they didn't remove all the debris. They decided to cover all the debris, which is why there is this grassy park area instead of all the beach. So you are literally walking over the ruins of Manshia and the ruins of the set for Kazablan. Okay, I have a song sheet and I'm going to go there now. And it's available at sward.posthaven.com. And there are other places where you have it. I can also send you a link if you want the PDF. Well, it was up. Okay, this is my doc file. And the first song we're going to do is called Yafo. Yafo means Jaffa. The words are by Amos Ettinger. The music is by Dov Seltzer. Come set your eyes at the tower's clock. This is the iconic clock at the center of Old Jaffa. And you can read the words. You'll feel in your bones, and you feel that you are again in Jaffa. The reason I chose these songs is because they have repetitive, lively choruses. If you pull up the sheet, you can see that there is, now I'll need to use this thing over here on this side. There is a set of notes, if you prefer to read the notes. These come from the music maker. I'm going to stop the share for a moment and set up the quote, the clip from the film. Stop share. You should be able to hear this.
תשים עיניים בשעון שבמגדל, תביט על השמיים, 1000 כוכבים מעל, תריח את הריח ותביט על הזריחה, ואז תרגיש בעצמות, תרגיש קישור, אתה נמצא, אתה נמצא ביפו, אתה נמצא ביפו, אתה נמצא ביפו, יפו, 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 יפתי, אתה נמצא ביפו, יפו, יפו, יפו.
Well, I could show you more of the bouzouki music. Zeltzer writes that he tried to have a Mediterranean and Israeli flair that would be unique to the characters and to the storyline and not simply be the same old musical score. The singer is Aliza Azikri, who was born in Morocco in 1941 as Lucy Malol. She died in 2009. I suspect that many Israelis remember her as a proponent of Greek songs, working together with Arisan very early in her career. She had an album called Na'ara Mamash Otsar. And again, people who know Israeli songs may remember this particular piece. I'm going to go now to the song, and we're going to look at the score. And here's where it begins. I'm going to sing this in a key that's comfortable for me, and you're welcome to join along with me. Ata nimtza beyafo, ata nimtza biyafo, ata nimtza biyafo, yafo, yafo. Yafo, yafo, yafati, ata nimtza biyafo, yafo, 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 yafo. And then it repeats and goes on. It's interesting to note, people who know the film may note that Zeltzer wrote a section that never made it to the film. I have not been able to see whether it's on any of the recordings from the film version. I'm going to go back to the words and we'll try to sing the first verse. Are the words big enough? Can you see the words? Somebody say something. Good. Can you see the words?
Yes.
They're kind of fuzzy and out of focus.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want, come and sing along. Tavo tasim einayim b'sha'on sheba migdal tabit al hashamayim elef kochavim me'al tariach et hareach v'tabit al hashkiyam v'yaz targish ba'atzamot תרגיש כי שוב אתה נמצא ביפו, אתה נמצא ביפו, אתה נמצא ביפו, יפו, 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 יפתי, אתה נמצא ביפו, יפו, 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 יפו. And the song goes on. In order to get to the other songs, I'm going to go quickly to the next selection. By the way, I put in bookmarks, but the bookmarks fail because I'm showing this on my own computer. The next song that I want to talk to you about is called Rosa Rosa. Lyrics are by Chaim Chefer. Zeltzer wrote the music for this as he did for all the pieces. This one really has nothing to do with Jaffa itself. It has everything to do with Yehoram Gaon. Zeltzer writes that he wrote it for Yehoram Gaon's first solo performance, and it was something of a joke. Kol Yisrael didn't get the joke, wouldn't play it, but the public loved it. Zeltzer writes that they demanded Yehoram Gaon sing it in every concert. Paper wrote a third verse that was not included in the film, and in the film, Aliza Azikri sings one of the verses. This is the last verse. I went through beatings for you. I got mixed up with the law. You didn't even sign my guarantee. You just kept laughing. Say what the end will be. I can go no longer. Ani kvar lo yachol yoter. At kvar bat 45 או 6 ואני 50 סוגר. I'm closing in on 50. Rosa, Rosa, Rosa. I suspect that many people familiar with Israeli songs know this is a very popular number. Yehoram Gaon still sings it in his concerts. And here is the music. Let's hear it first with Yehoram Gaon.
נשיקה? מה קרה? אנחנו חיפשנו אותך כל הלילה. לא, באמת, מי קרא לך?
I wrote down the place in the film to be able to get it.
גם אני.
ראשונה, כל קילו וקילו שלך. תחתני איתי, רוזה.
יאללה.
נעשה מיליון ילדים. רוזה, את המלכה שלי, אהובה שלי. רוזה! רוזה! יש יא רוזה, איזה פוזה. שראיתיך ילדה קטנה, צוחקת צחוק רחב כזה, פתאום הרגשתי איך כמו שק, אליי נכנסת פה בחזה. מיליון פרחים שלחתי לך, ו2 מיליונים מכתבים, אחת נמשך לצחוק עד שיגע, ברחוב את כל התושבים. شمرتي بالشبيلة يشبلي رد الطخ من هبليام أشير بانو أزمو البيت أمر شقات رد سالك يوت هين طبيم ومدوكيم أسبي شبيلك طلعتي فوق برحوم حاروش كادين دا تسموكيم
Well, let's take a gander at singing the refrain from this song. Here's where it begins. Ach, 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 Rosa, 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 את אהובה שלי, כמה שירים עוד לך אך רוזה, עד שתהי אשתי. Ach, Rosa, 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 את אהובה שלי. The third song I'm going to look at is called Demokratia. And I actually chose this song because of my students. My students at the University of Wyoming, almost every year that I show Kazablan to them, they remember this song best. I think there are 2 or 3 reasons. One is because the refrain is easy to remember and has a word that they know, Demokratia, they understand. But they also understand the critique of the gap between the promise and reality of democracy. Let's look at the words. Democracy is equality between the poor and the wealthy. Bein ani le'ba'al hon, person who has a lot of money. About tzarich levarer, you have to figure out why. Some people are shavim yoter. In Hebrew, Ettinger has a play on words, shivyon and shavim. Equal, but some people are more equal. The next one is a little sexist. You have to forgive them. This was the 70s, the 60s. If you have a tluna kasha, don't give it to the wife. This is a set rule. Just be silent democratically. Then they turn to the Sfardim. The Sfardim are the majority. But mi yoshev tov, who's sitting pretty? The Ashkenazim. The zelot tzchok, emitziu et hachok. The Ashkenazim rule because they made up the law. Democracy means you can curse democracy all day long, but democracy won't say anything. You can shout all day long. Well, what about law and order? Seder, mishtar v'seder. What about law and order? Here, mishtar v'seder is the sakin. Kan medaberet sakin. The knife is what speaks. Democracy is progress. And progress, dorechet bimkoma. It's just staying in its same place. And in point of fact, if you look around, you'll see sometimes progress is going backwards. The next verse says there's always food for those who have money, but in a democratic way, people who have no money can starve to death. Democracy is also a place where everybody has equal access to the government. But there's a pakid nachmad, a nice clerk, who will basically tell you, Chabub, come back tomorrow. Anyway, there it is. Hopefully I will find the location very quickly in my print of the movie. I'm going to actually play this part in honor of the Israeli elections, upcoming Israeli elections.
זה כל אחד עושה מה שהוא רוצה.
זה טוב דמוקרטיה.
דמוקרטיה מצביעים. רבותיי, מי בעד ללכת לשיכונים להרים את היד?
לא מלמד.
48 בעד.
48 avec moi.
עכשיו, מי בעד להישאר כאן ולעשות שיפוצים, להרים את היד?
יש שקשוקה, תרים את היד או שאני שובר לך אותה.
בעד.
48 avec moi.
48 בעד שיכונים, 48 בעד שיפוצים. מה אנחנו עושים עכשיו?
זה דמוקרטיה. הדמוקרטיה זה שוויון בין עני לבעל הון, אבל צריך עוד לברר מדוע יש שווים יותר. דמוקרטיה. דמוקרטיה.
אם יש לך תלונה קשה, אל תגלה זאת לאישה. אל תערער את זה, החוק באופן דמוקרטי. שתוק. אצלנו רוב, אך מי יושב אצלנו טוב? אשכנזים וזה לא צחוק, כי הם המציאו את החוק.
בדמוקרטיה מה שטוב כלל אותה יום יום ברחוב, היא לא תשמע ולא תאמר גם אם תצעק פה עד מחר. דמוקרטיה, 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 דמוקרטיה,
שבשטח פה שולט משטר וסדר בהחלט, לכל אדם שלא מבין כאן מדברת השגית.
I think you guys get the idea, and I'm going to go to the words, and we'll sing just the. Here we go. We'll sing the. We'll sing one of the verses. Okay, I know you're mostly keeping yourself muted, but join along if you want. הדמוקרטיה זה שוויון בין עני לבעל הון, אבל צריך עוד לברר מדוע יש שווים יותר. דמוקרטיה, דמוקרטיה, etc., etc. I have the words for Kol HaKavod, which I'm going to show you in a moment. I'm not going to do the I'm not going to do a clip from the beginning. You can easily find this yourself. Let's see if this will work a little better. Kol HaKavod basically means congratulations, or congratulations for this honor, or even great job, although very often it is translated as all honor to you. From every window, they say all the honor, Kol HaKavod. But Kol HaKavod is like congratulations. But the idea is that the Kazablan character is saying that he has lots of honor and self-respect, even if society doesn't give it to him. Now, I believe this is the end of the song sheet. And here's the music. And it's almost the end of my presentation. I'd like to put in a plug that the Colorado Hebrew Chorale is having a wonderful program of the great Jewish composers of the American musical. Hopefully this link will work. Well, you can go to coloradohebrewchorale.org and it will be there. There it is. Okay, and this is the information, session 3, March 7th, 2021, 7:30 p.m. Miriam is doing a great job. Where's my PowerPoint? And I made a slide for the next L'chaim, which is on Monday, March 22nd, 2021. I also have a list of 7 additional Yafo songs, which I'm not going to play for you, but I want to know that they exist. I added the Andromeda song when I finally found it. I was not aware of any recording that existed, but YouTube, eventually you poke around, you find it. Ein Kamo Yafo Balelot by Chaim Hefer, sung by the Tarnagolim. There's nothing like Jaffa at night. Zohi Yafo, with music by Moshe Vilensky. The words are by Gamzu, and the song was sung by Avi Toledano. Yafo Ir Ad, it's a fun song, bum, 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 but at the beginning. Halom Liyam Tichon is a very serious song, a window looking out at the Mediterranean. This is a song in which a couple is separated by the Holocaust. He is in Jaffa looking at the Mediterranean and writing to her, who apparently survived but hadn't made it to Israel. Nama Yafo, Yafo was sleeping, sung by Gidi Gove. And then I Left for Jerusalem by Herzl Kabilio, who was famous as a football player, who apparently left the team that was in Bloomfield Stadium in Yafo and went to play for Jerusalem. And as I said, I found that a recording of Andromeda's Rock. I'm going to stop the share, and I am going to we have a little time for questions and answers and discussions, but I'm going to ask Leah to announce the Safe House concert. And Carol, if you have any further announcements before we carry out our time, then you have a chance for that.
Okay, so Carol, are you going first?
No, you can.
All right, so we have a very busy month for the Colorado Hebrew Chorale in Kol Nashim, and coming up on March 7th, as Seth said, episode 3 of our Jewish Composers of Broadway. March 14th, Sing Out for Safe House is a live stream concert featuring Kol Nashim, Colorado Hebrew Chorale, the Denver Chorale, the Denver Women's Chorus, and 14ers of Denver Children's Choir, all raising money in benefiting Safe House Denver, which is the only organization exclusively supporting survivors of domestic violence. You don't want to miss it. We're going to feature the world premiere of our pianist Neely Abramson's song, Kasher Berachti, Baruch Shasani Isha, Blessed Who Made Me a Woman, and the premiere of the Colorado Hebrew Chorale's first offering as a virtual choir, Heal Us Now. So mark your calendars and don't miss any of these wonderful events.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Giving Seth a moment to catch his breath. And there are a few questions. I want to also acknowledge once again that the people among our regulars, thank you, from the mountain regions from Colorado, not only Greater Denver, New Mexico, Wyoming, as well as East Coast, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Philly, on and on. We're so happy that you have been joining us or joining us just for the first time. Barbara Zeidman asked one question, Seth, regarding whether, you may know this, if the producers or the people who were behind the scenes in the days of early musicals for the state of Israel, that is why couldn't they tackle a serious topic? Was it because of the culture, an official policy? Did anyone have an appetite for this? Would you happen to know?
I don't know. I did see it in the stuff I reviewed to prepare this talk. My guess is that the main reason has to do with the maturity of the Israeli film industry. All the observers of the Israeli cinema have suggested that it was very rudimentary and very Zionist up to the 60s. In the 60s, there began to be some criticism. Uri Zohar has some marvelous things, which ultimately are critiques of Israeli society. But they could only be done in the context of melodramas and light comedies and things that were basically positive and upbeat. You could do it on stage, apparently, just you couldn't get backings for the films. Things began to change in the 90s with a lot more money being streamed into it, a lot more talent. And that's the best answer that I can give.
Okay, I have one more question from Beth, who asks about the Hebrew Yafati, my Yafo. Is that the same if you were speaking to a male speaker?
You know, that's interesting question, but here it is Yafo, Yafati. So here is my best explanation of the grammar. Thank you very much. In Hebrew, names of cities are grammatically feminine. So it would be Ir Yafa, Yafo, Yafa, and therefore Yafati.
There you go. Okay, I'm going to give Kol HaKavod to Seth, who's going to close out the session with Kavod, Yesh Lecha Kavod. And thank you very much for all of your efforts tonight, Seth, and always. It's great that so many of you have joined us so far. You will get something in the chat in just a moment to remind you that we couldn't do this without you, and that includes your fiscal support, large and not so large. We would really love to count you amongst our supporters for this program and future programs going forward. One other fun fact from someone who joined us tonight, who I know has also been with us when the Colorado Hebrew Chorale actually screened Kazablan back in 2002. Yes, I can still remember 2002. That's Diane Samet, who one of her maids of honor was in fact in the film Kazablan. What a cool thing all these years later. Okay, Seth, it's up to you now. Kavod, and thanks again to everybody.
Well, I will mention something that I saw briefly in the chat. Dodik for sure knew West Side Story, and I don't have any idea about it. I would like to always, on the one hand, suggest that the West Side Story motif was very important. Like West Side Story, real gang violence might have been not very attractive, but if you had Jerome Robbins doing the choreography and Lenny Bernstein writing the music, you know, that's a whole different story. And I think you ought to keep that in mind as well. There were aspects of that. The musical was a lot closer to the West Side Story idea than the original stage play was, and I'm sure that there was some influence there. Zeltzer didn't write anything about that in his memoir. Okay, share the screen, and we'll take it out with Kol HaKavod. This is the overture. let's go to the actual song.
כשהקרב היה בוער והכיתה לא ששה, המפקד היה אומר, אתה ראשון יא קאזה! כולם ידעו שקזבלן ראשון תמיד לצעוד, ומאחור הם צעקו, כל הכבוד! כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. אחד הולך עם בחורה ביפו בן 40, אם רק תרצה אצלי תהיה ישר בין הידיים, אך לא אפריע לבחור שלא יתחיל לרעוד, כי זה אצלי פשוט פרינציפ, לי יש כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. בשיכור לאיזה בר אני אותו מרגיע, עצמי מן השעון ישר על ג'בליה, אבל אחר כך חוזר בקטן מאוד, מרים כוסית ועוד אומר, כל הכבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. יש!
Everyone, thank you again for being part of this evening's program. Sending you all best wishes for a Freilich Purim, that you should have a joyous Purim coming up. And we look forward to seeing you, God willing, next month for all of the various Colorado Hebrew Chorale online programs. You can always visit our website, coloradohebrewchorale.org, and find the donations button. That's it for us tonight. Thanks again.